China's vice president spoke of the Ponzi scheme, not referring to private companies, but to the country's whole financial system. China's internet censorship blocks websites most people in the West can't imagine going without. That even includes Wikipedia. Chinese police took one netizen into custody after they caught him browsing the site in his home. China is threatening war with Taiwan and the U.S., but China's Ministry of National Defense says otherwise. Taiwan updated its law to say no to China's sand dredgers, and China will finally pay the price for sand theft from Taiwan seas. And Chinese billionaire Jack Ma's payment company is set for a record-breaking IPO next week. The company controls massive data of Chinese users and is subject to surveillance of the Chinese regime. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. First, we take a look at U.S. decoupling from China. China said on Friday that complete decoupling between itself and the United States was unrealistic, citing the close economic ties between both countries. This after the Chinese Communist Party concluded a 4-day closed meeting door this week. The main topics on the meetings were China's economic and social policy goals for the next 5 years. The U.S. has accelerated its move to decouple from China this year. It imposed sanctions on some Chinese companies due to national security concerns and forbid the export of U.S. advanced technologies to them. This was a heavy blow to the Chinese companies, even threatening their existence. Dozens of Chinese nationals in the U.S. or U.S. citizens were charged for helping the Chinese Communist Party with intellectual property theft. CCP members were barred from immigrating to the U.S. Students and researchers related to China's military were denied visas. More than 10 Chinese media outlets in the U.S. and a CCP-related organization were designated as foreign missions. This move limits the CCP's influence in the U.S. The U.S.-China trade war and the global pandemic have been leading to many foreign companies diversifying their supply chains and moving at least part of their production out of China, including many American companies. The Chinese Communist Party set emphasis on domestic economic cycle at an important meeting. At the same time, China's vice president warns Chinese finance should never again put itself in gambles, bubbles, and Ponzi schemes in order to circulate. Experts say that might be already too late.
Beijing has drawn up its 14th five-year plan. It was announced during the 5th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee, an important political event in China. It's largely anticipated to set the tone of what's called dual circulation. It means that the country's domestic economic cycle will play a leading role, while international economic cycles remain an extension or supplement. Days before the October 24th session, Vice President Wang Qishan gave a virtual speech during the Second Bond Finance Summit in Shanghai. Wang mentioned Beijing's dominant use of the term dual circulation. When it comes to Chinese finance, he likened financial systems without a real economy to a fish out of water. He emphasized that China's finance sector should avoid following unsustainable development avenues, speculative gambling, financial bubble recycling, or Ponzi schemes, to name a few. But his link between Chinese finance and Ponzi schemes has triggered speculation online. A Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent investment scam. It generates returns for earlier investors using money taken from later investors. Current affairs commentator Li Linyi describes the model as a portrait of China's current economy. He explains that in order to keep domestic operation running, local regime departments must borrow money from other projects, like real estate, 5G networks, or digital economy. That's even though those spheres are already heavily in debt. Thus, the debt pile is constantly growing. William Yu is an economist and professor from University of California, Los Angeles. He says China's so-called dual circulation will not solve its economy's structural problems, despite Beijing's efforts. He cites the serious imbalances facing Chinese economy, including a debt boom, investment waste, and real estate bubbles, among others.
All these are long-term structural problems. I don't think there is a quick solution.
Yu says Beijing's terms simply serve as a nice-sounding slogan, but will do little to aid the crisis courting China's economy.
China's Ant Group, backed by Jack Ma, is to be listed in Shanghai and Hong Kong next week. The online payments business is set to make the world's largest stock market debut, raising over $34 billion. That's even though it's only selling about 11% of its shares. Experts estimate that after the listings, the Chinese company's value could exceed JP Morgan, currently the world's largest bank. Some U.S. politicians have warned against the initial public offering, given the company's close ties with the Chinese regime. Republican Senator Marco Rubio said, quote, "It's outrageous that Wall Street is rewarding the Chinese Communist Party's blatant crackdown on Hong Kong's freedom and autonomy by orchestrating Ant Group's IPO on the Hong Kong and Shanghai stock exchanges." The Trump administration is also reportedly considering adding the group into trade blacklist, but none of these have stopped big banks from showing interest. China just finished a financial summit in Shanghai. One of the agendas is to warm up for the IPO.
我也很自豪地跟大家宣布，昨天晚上就在上海，我们决定了蚂蚁金服的上市的定价，这么大一次全人类有史以来最大的上市。
People showed up supporting the warm-up, including two former U.S. Treasury secretaries, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, renowned Wall Street hedge fund manager, Bloomberg News chairman, and former governor of Japan's central bank. This despite increasing tensions between Washington and Beijing. So what makes Ant Group so financially attractive? Big data. The company controls a scale of user data that's one of the kind in the world. Ant Group's crown jewel product is Alipay, a payment app similar to PayPal. Mainland Chinese use the app for everything, and the app records personal transactions of 1 billion Chinese people. The platform's made loans to about 500 million people. That's as the company branded itself as a tech firm and has been using artificial intelligence to analyze user behaviors. As profitable as the amount of data can be, it is also subject to heavy surveillance of the Chinese regime, as Chinese companies are required by law to cooperate with intelligence agencies if asked. Meanwhile, the potential success of Ant Group's Hong Kong listing will give the Chinese regime credibility to boost the narrative of Hong Kong's prosperity. That's despite the Communist Party's bloody breakdown on the city's freedom. Now we look to a luxury mansion in southern China. This video clip went viral last Sunday. It shows a joyful celebration of a traditional Chinese festival in a luxury mansion. At the entrance, two Chinese lion dancers welcoming guests, and a huge cake at the foot of the steps. The three-story mansion has an ancient Chinese entrance with bricks and tiles, as well as stone steps with a dragon totem. It's believed this mansion belongs to Yang Lingkui, deputy mayor of Pingle County in southern China. On Wednesday, some Chinese media asked the Pingle County government about it. The spokesperson claimed the news was fake and threatened that if the hype continues, it would be handled directly through legal procedures. However, another media outlet, Shengyu News, said on Thursday, a team had been established locally to investigate issues related to the deputy county mayor. And on the same day, Yang Quanlun, Yang's sibling, started to give comments. Yang's sister claimed that the house was built by her and another brother of hers and had nothing to do with the deputy county mayor. Yang's brother confirmed to a newspaper that the building is his old mansion, and his sister built it with him, adding it didn't cost much. His brother, the deputy mayor, just went there for holidays to get together with the family for a few days. But when the reporter asked to check the real estate certificate, Yang's brother stopped responding. Police arrested a Chinese internet user for going on Wikipedia. Authorities say he broke the law and caught him on the spot in his own home. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
A Chinese internet user was taken into custody for doing research on Wikipedia. That's according to a now scrapped government record. In China, visiting Wikipedia is considered illegal. The website is blocked along with tens of thousands of others, including Google and Facebook. NTD is also blocked in China. These websites are censored for carrying content that Chinese authorities see as sensitive.
To access the blocked websites, Chinese internet users have to bypass the internet firewall. One of the common ways to do that is to use a special kind of software called a virtual private network, or VPN. But crossing the firewall runs the risk of being tracked by the police. Like the man arrested for researching on Wikipedia, who is named Zhang Tao. He was apprehended while visiting overseas websites from his own home. Zhang isn't alone. In his home province, China's southeast Zhejiang, there are almost 70 cases where people have broken through the censorship system. But Zhang's arrest appears to have attracted some attention. Local authorities previously published his case on the government website, along with others. But now they've all been taken down. Bypassing the internet firewall can also lead to hefty fines. In Zhejiang, one can be fined up to $2,000. That's almost twice the average monthly salary of Chinese citizens. Juliet Song, NTD News.
Next, a Chinese official who's facing an unusual charge. On Thursday, Hunan province officials' WeChat account issued a message about the case of the former deputy mayor of Changsha, the capital city of the southern Chinese province. Chen Zehui has been under investigation on suspicion of serious violations of discipline and law since April this year. The leading charge of this kind of case is normally corruption, but Chen's leading charge was the possession of banned books. The official report says Chen purchased books and periodicals abroad with serious political problems and kept them for a long time. This is not an isolated case. In recent years, many senior CCP officials have been charged for the same reason, including 8 officials from all levels of governments since 2018. That's according to official reports. The highest-ranking official among them was a member of the Standing Committee of the Guizhou Provincial Party Committee. This is the highest CCP organization in the province. What does it mean to have books and publications with serious political problems? According to the newspaper China Discipline Inspection and Supervision News, it includes books, audio or visual materials that criticize the CCP and so-called political rumors about China's political situation and articles about the dire situation of China's economy and so on. These are all regarded as serious political problems. China is threatening military conflict with the U.S. by provoking U.S. allies, threatening the U.S. in speeches and increasing its military strength. However, recent comments from the Chinese Ministry of National Defense points to something else. Chinese bomber and fighter jets entered Taiwan's airspace at least 46 times last month, in an escalation of military aggression. Chinese state-run media issued a commentary suggesting that using military force on Taiwan is now high on China's agenda. The U.S. is stepping up its military and diplomatic support for Taiwan. Recently, the U.S. approved arms sales to Taiwan worth around $1.8 billion. Recently, Chinese Communist Party, or CCP leader Xi Jinping, made indirect provocations against the U.S. in his Korean War anniversary speech, saying that some countries pursue unilateralism, protectionism, which leads nowhere, and that China will not allow national development interests to be undermined, and the Chinese people will deliver a head-on blow if necessary. He warned that once provoked, things will get ugly. With this in mind, China is simultaneously rapidly increasing its military strength. According to a Pentagon report, China's military has surpassed the United States in ground-based missile development as of 2019. It also includes an estimate on China's current nuclear arsenal size at about 200 nuclear warheads. Is a military conflict with the U.S. within consideration for China? According to China's Ministry of National Defense spokesperson, the answer is no. He said in a press conference on Thursday that it is in the interests of both sides to maintain the stability of the Sino-U.S. military relations. This raises the question, why is China provoking the U.S. and its allies while increasing its military strength? A Canadian cultural scholar and commentator on China, Wen Zhao, has suggested that China's actions is just for show tactics. It doesn't truly want to go to war with the U.S. Chinese forces still have major gaps and shortcomings, this according to a Pentagon report. The report also says that China currently acknowledges that its army is not world-class. And now to Hong Kong. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has condemned the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, and the Hong Kong government over its recent arrest and detention of 3 student activists. Pompeo says the CCP has violated its international obligations under the 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration and doesn't respect human rights, including the rights to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. The 3 students arrested on Tuesday were former members of Student Localism, a Hong Kong-based pro-independence organization. They were arrested in July on suspicion of, as Chinese authorities called it, inciting secession, violating the national security law. Chinese authorities have issued a ban on lawyers who were appointed to take the case of the 12 Hong Kong activists. The 12 have been detained in China since August. They tried to escape to Taiwan by boat. Chinese Coast Guards captured them halfway for illegally crossing a border. The youngest of the pro-democracy activists is only 16. Families and lawyers have been denied to meet them. According to Radio Free Asia, 5 Chinese law firms have received verbal orders from China's Ministry of Justice asking them to drop the case. Beijing has so far forced 6 lawyers to quit. 13 lawyers have been hauled in to chat with officials. Accusations of illegal sand mining in Taiwanese waters amid rising tensions between Taipei and Beijing. Beijing is reportedly increasing its vessels in Taiwan. Now Taiwan is taking action.
Taiwan is taking a harder stance on Beijing's sand dredgers. Taiwan's parliament passed proposed legislation on Thursday. It imposes heavier penalties for unauthorized sand mining in Taiwanese waters. According to China Times, offenders could be sentenced in prison from 1 to 7 years and facing fines of up to $3 million. The draft legislation also addresses the storage and handling of confiscated vessels or equipment. Last week, the local authority detained all 11 crew members from a Chinese sand dredger and put back 1,800 tons of sand extracted in the sea around the Matsu Islands. The islands belong to Taiwan and are located north of the Taiwan Strait facing China. Chinese cross-border sand theft has become worse since China's sand mining ban. Taiwanese media outlet Liberty Times Net reports a Matsu Island resident recently told local media that they saw over 100 Chinese vessels pumping sand and gravel daily, even bringing in fuel supply vessels. Witnesses said most of these vessels had no certificate, no signs, and no numbers. Shirong Xu is a professor from Taiwan Zhengzhi University. He believes Beijing is backing the illegal sand mining operations, and the more intensive operations may reflect the tensions across the Taiwan Strait. Xu told U.S.-based Radio Free Asia that considering planes are constantly coming in from China, Beijing is likely to create more tensions and maybe some incidents. He also believes Beijing plans to extract sand from Taiwan because they sent in a whole fleet and carry away a tremendous amount of sand and gravel every single day to satisfy their construction needs. Sand and gravel are the main components of concrete. The rapid development of China's real estate market has meant material prices have soared. Many people are mining to make quick money. According to Liberty Times Net, China's illegal mining not only affects the marine ecology and causes environmental problems, but also harms Taiwan's economy. Reporting by Xu Wenhui, NTD News.
Taiwan's chipmaker UMC pledges to help the U.S. prosecute a Chinese chipmaker for theft. This after UMC pleaded guilty to helping a Chinese firm steal trade secrets from Idaho-based Micron Technology. UMC paid a $60 million fine. It's the second largest fine ever in a criminal trade secret prosecution. Deputy Attorney General said in a statement, UMC stole the trade secrets of an American leader in computer memory to enable China to achieve a strategic priority, self-sufficiency in computer memory production, without spending its own time or money to earn it. UMC, a Chinese company, and 3 individuals were indicted in 2018 for conspiracy to steal trade secrets from Micron. UMC said its management was unaware of and did not authorize actions taken by 3 of its employees who had previously worked for Micron. U.S. prosecutors have agreed to drop charges of economic espionage and conspiracy against UMC as a result. The U.S. alleges the state-owned Chinese firm used those secrets in its memory chip designs. The company has previously denied any wrongdoing. UMC has pledged substantial assistance to help the U.S. in the high-profile case against China's chipmaker. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you next time.